Secretary Yellen, what's your message tonight for Americans who are rattled by what they've experienced in the last days and weeks and concerned about their retirement accounts and nervous about a recession?
Well, this is the worst self-inflicted policy wound I've ever seen in my career inflicted on our economy. The Trump tariff plans are doing immense damage to our economy. You can see that in the stock market, in the impact these tariffs are expected to have on American households. And we're even beginning to see what looks like a flight away from dollar-based assets in the financial markets, which is a really scary development.
How long, I mean, the damage to the reputation of the United States, to the confidence people have or had around the world toward the United States, I mean, reflected in the dollar and investments. How long does something like that take to rebuild?
Well, I think that could take a long time to rebuild. Dollar assets have long been regarded as the safest in the world, especially U.S. Treasury bonds and bills. They form the core of the whole global financial system. And what we saw this week was a sharp increase, one of the biggest increases on record over the space of a week in long-term Treasury yields, almost 50 basis points. And at the same time, a decline in the value of the dollar. This is a really unusual pattern because in chaotic times, usually Treasury yields fall. The Treasury bonds are a safe haven. People buy them. That's not what's happening now. They're selling Treasuries. And there's also downward pressure on the dollar.
There's pending litigation of whether the president can fire heads of independent government agencies. And a major question is, depending on how that litigation is resolved, is whether he might try to oust Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. You served as the Federal Reserve Chair. What happens if that job becomes simply another political appointee who serves at the pleasure of the president?
Well, it's well understood that countries that have independent central banks exhibit better economic performance, and there's a very good reason for that. It's that independent central banks are not driven by politics, and when those central banks are politically driven, they tend to do things that are destabilizing to economies. So this is a development that would greatly concern me, and I think it should concern all Americans.
Secretary Yellen, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks, Anderson.
Next, breaking news in the case of the mistakenly deported man now locked up in that notorious El Salvador prison. A federal judge had just issued a ruling, and as you'll see, she is not mincing words when it comes to the administration. And later, more fallout from the gutting of USAID. The U.S. only sent 3 aid workers to Myanmar